Hey heroes, here we are at Detroit Comics in Ferndale, Michigan. This is Mike L from the Comic Book Syndicate. We're with our best pal, Brian Kelly from Detroit Comics. Brian, how's it going, buddy?
We're fine.
Okay, anyway, so we just reviewed a very important comic book and also a very good comic called Miracleman. This is Miracleman by the original writer, actually Alan Moore, and John Totleben. This is book 3 that we talked about tonight. Brian, tell us, why did you pick this comic? I mean, 25, 30 years later, why'd you pick it?
My license plate says Komoda.
Okay. It's Alan Moore basically saying what would happen if all these things really happened. But I think it's also that he did it structurally in a way that no one had done. Book 3 basically is starting out in the present of 1985, flashing back to the past of 1982, and bringing back this psychopath supervillain that ends up destroying London. In one sentence, how can you describe this comic?
A guy discovers that he's super powerful, kind of out of nowhere, and that he has a rival he didn't know about, and it kind of spirals out from there.
General comments, what do you think?
General comments, it's okay.
Didn't like it. And to preface, Alan Moore is not my kind of style, so that probably impacted it a little bit. I gave it a 3 out of 10. And even that I thought was being a little bit generous, probably.
He experimented so much with structure, so much with the form of comic books in general, but the superhero genre. I think that's why it's still influenced today. I know that a lot of writers like Mark Waid, Mark Millar, Grant Morrison, they were directly influenced by this comic. Even though a lot of modern writers might not name drop this comic, they might name drop Watchmen first, I still think this thing is vastly influential. Do you agree with that?
I do. I think it is an archetype before Watchmen. It's kind of, he's fleshing things out for Watchmen in the ideas for Miracleman, even though the final act of Olympus is thought out after Watchmen. It does lay the groundwork for a lot of modern comics, maybe the ultimization of comic book superheroes in general.
So you grew up, you liked this comic when you read it as a kid, I assume?
Yes.
Okay. Also, one of my favorite comic books, blew the lid off of my comic book reading experience. We reviewed it tonight with a room full of people. Not all of them liked it as much as we did.
It was fine.
Alan Moore is famous for doing Watchmen, V for Vendetta, From Hell. He started Miracleman before Watchmen. It was his first take on superheroes. Why are we still talking about it today?
Okay. You're 12 years old. You're Billy Batson. Would you really want to turn back into Billy Batson if you're Captain Marvel? I mean, come on. Think about it. And there you go. Boom.
It's fine. It's not as influential as some people might say it is.
If this is not your style, what is your style of comic book?
I like a little bit more fun. I mean, it can be a little bit edgy. Really like Saga. Love Paper Girls. Paper Girls is really good. Loved Cable and Deadpool.
Let's talk about what's your least favorite thing about this comic.
Definitely the ending. I felt like the ending was sloppy a little bit. It just seemed like he was just trying to make it end.
It was just needlessly dark, and I felt like it wasn't really saying anything with it.
What about the whole part about him taking over the world and instituting his whole philosophy of government and destroying the entire world? You know what I mean? All that.
Right. I just felt like it kind of came out of nowhere. It was the last sixth of this book. I know is what we spent most of our time even talking about. I felt like it was a pretty small portion of the book, and it doesn't come naturally out of what I read first.
There's readers out there that read Watchmen, they like Watchmen, and then they go, hey, wait, there's this comic called Before Watchmen, and there's this crossover called, what is it called, The Clock? No, what is this crossover called now?
Doomsday Clock.
The Doomsday Clock. Yeah. Should those people be reading Doomsday Clock, or should they be reading Miracleman?
Now, my old self would say you got to read Miracleman, but then I'm yelling into a room that's huge that nobody's in, and I know somebody that is too.
Miracleman!
Do you hear it? Do you see?
Yeah.
That was good. Come on, no disapproving looks, Jolie. That's horse shit.
Come on! Were you a fan of the artwork at all?
It was okay. I wasn't put off by it or especially excited with it.
Really?
The art was all right. It wasn't my personal style, but I liked it.
Okay, so nobody cares about Miracleman. If there was an analog for what Miracleman is to superheroes, can you give us an analog? So, for example, music, Brian. You're a music freak, right? You love music as much as I do. Is there an equivalent in music to what Miracleman is to comic books?
Negative Land.
Never heard of them. Okay, so someone else. That's a good point though, because not most people have not heard of Miracleman.
Somebody brought up the point today of Black Flag, and so I have to say that's kind of the way this book is. You look at it, you've got your really good experimental phase. You've got your phase that is like, and then everybody's kind of loving it beyond that. Your homage phase, probably. So to sum it up, Black Flag.
So now, knowing that you didn't like the book, was there anything that you did like about the book?
I can definitely see where it influences modern culture, comic book culture, especially Alan Moore.
All culture. Go ahead. Does it seem like it's a sort of a generic, typical comic, or does it seem like it's different from other comics that you've read?
It was different from a lot of comics I've read. I would say it's very typical of Alan Moore, the other things of his that I've read. And the art style also was slightly different, but not very different.
Well, I love this page. I don't have much of an eye for art personally, but I love that, up close on both the baby and the wife's face, and then they back away slower. They walk out in the final panels, them both gone, all from the perspective of Miracleman. Thought it was a really well done page. I like that a lot.
His wife leaves him and his child leaves him.
Yep.
It's just so heartbreaking, I know. So if there was someone that was looking for a comic to read, would you recommend this comic? Would you recommend a different comic? Or
If this was the kind of genre they were interested in, I would recommend this one or Watchmen.
do you ever fantasize about being taller? Is that a problem for you?
Yeah. See, if I was taller, I could just grab you and like squish you into a little ball and just throw you away from me.
Harsh. Brian, why do you love this comic?
We're old.
Okay, come on.
No, well, we're older. I have to wear reading glasses now.
Okay.
And those are like, my grandma used to call them cheaters. And
Okay.
they're cheaters now. You buy them at Walgreens for like $10.